This is a cyclone. Anything can happen and most likely will.
Ooh, it's massive.
We need to make sure that crews are safe.
They're working 24/7 to keep the community safe.
Doors are open, arms are wide. Everyone's welcome. Come inside.
Doors are open, come inside. The Queensland Premier, David Crisafulli, joins me now from the Emergency Services Complex in Brisbane. Premier, welcome back to 7:30. I'll just go in straight away and say this has been a big preparation for you. Are you anxious about tomorrow?
We're prepared, Sarah, and it's important to note so too are Queenslanders. So the delay in the system gave us another day or two to prepare even further. So I genuinely believe the work's been done. Yes, it's been a long time since a cyclone of this size crossed the coast this far south, half a century in fact. But I do believe that people in our part of the world, in both Queensland and northern New South Wales, are very resilient. They handle flooding well. And yes, there's added complexities that come with a cyclone. But I do believe that the legwork's been done. And the joy about that is if you do your preparation well, you can then go from response to recovery. And that is really important when it comes to handling disaster events.
When do you expect to see the harshest conditions, Premier?
Well, in terms of the wind speed, that's inevitably tomorrow morning, but that brings a layer of complexity with other things as well. So obviously wind remains a factor and we're asking people to make sure you're inside. People have overwhelmingly cleaned their yards. It's really been refreshing to see the way that neighbours have banded together to do that. So that's the first risk, and we're urging people to make sure you stay inside. They've done all that legwork, so that's important. But that then brings the next complexity, which is obviously the storm tide surge that we've been speaking about. Now, if the system was to cross on the high tide, which is around about 4 o'clock tomorrow morning, that brings a higher level of risk when it comes to that. Now, we've been putting those models out. We've had people go door knocking and advising people who are in those areas. There is the option of sending text messages if things reach that point. So a lot of legwork has been done in that space. When the system then goes through, there's another challenge, which is obviously the amount of rainfall that is in it. And over the course of Saturday and Sunday, we are going to see large amounts of rainfall. Now, that brings the prospect of river and creek flooding into the mix. And again, those maps have been put online, and you were good enough last night to have me, and we spoke about that disaster.qld.gov.au website where we're putting all that information on, and people can still go there in real time and see it. But people in this part of the world, they know how to handle that. They deal with that from time to time, and I have every faith with the preparations we've put in place, with the way that we've been able to get those messages out. I do have every faith that people will get through it.
There have been significant power outages. Are there enough generators in Queensland to deal with those power outages?
There will never be enough generators to plug those holes. To give you a magnitude of how large that is, we've just gone past 60,000 homes without power, only in the recent moments. So that gives you a degree of how large that scale is. Most of those are on the Gold Coast, but there's also a number of the Bay Islands and in the Redlands area. That number we expect to keep rising. Now, the reason why that happened is because you've had with the wind, trees have come over and knocked those power lines. We have pre-positioned generators in some of those key areas, and we will, the moment it's safe, obviously they will be turned on to some of those key infrastructure. But the real work is actually reconnecting so you can get permanent power supply. Now, there are 1,200 workers from our state-owned corporation, which is called Energex. They have been pre-positioned, and I assure you, the moment it is safe to do so, the moment that system goes through, they will be on the ground, and there'll be teams clearing the vegetation while they are hooking up that power. Then from the other end of the state, we have what's called Ergon, and they will be mobilising to head south to help when they need a break and to add extra horsepower as well. And to show you the spirit of mateship, but also how tough life can be in a disaster, that role was reversed only a month ago when the floods were in North Queensland. So it just shows you the benefit of pre-positioning and the benefit of that great mateship.
Now, we understand that quite a large number of people, hundreds I think, have refused the suggestion or order to evacuate across Stradbroke Island, Moreton Bay and surrounding islands. Are you still responsible for people who don't evacuate and stay behind?
Well, look, we continue to give messaging and we have advised that during the course of this event, and we will support people. It will support them in their choices, and that's inevitably the best thing you can always do. You give people information, informed choices, and then they'll make informed decisions. Now, we have pre-positioned key health staff on those islands. We've spoken about putting generators there if there is a prolonged loss of power. But again, we're asking people, wherever you are, whatever decision you've made, make the smart choice as the system goes across. And some of the images that we've seen, and I must stress, we're only dealing with a very small portion of the public here, but some of the images of people being on beaches, it just makes you shake your head. We had a situation today where one of the viewing platforms at Main Beach on the Gold Coast, we had massive erosion there. It was literally hanging by next to nothing, and there were people out on that platform. Now, they were pulled back and council, together with police, have taped off that area. But you just question yourself, what on earth would somebody want to be doing in the middle of a cyclone out on the foreshore? And again, the vast majority of people have heeded the warning. For those that don't, we just have to continue to be prevalent and get that message out. But I just appeal to people who would consider doing something like that in an event. If you don't value your life, well, value the life of the person who has to come and rescue you. Value your family who'll have to hear the news. Please stay safe. The last thing we want is for people to be harmed.
Thanks for the very clear message and for joining us this evening, Premier.
Appreciate your time, Sarah. Thank you very much.
Our reporter, Tom Hartley, has taken the advice to bunker down with family in Brisbane. He joins me now. Tom, you've been with people, speaking with people. Obviously, you weren't able to visit them, people in some of those island communities today. What were they telling you?
Well, Sarah, I mean, a lot of them are feeling anxious, which is totally understandable because they are so isolated. I mean, these islands are pretty far off the coast, only accessible by ferry, and those ferries haven't been running, so it means that they're completely cut off from the mainland now. And for people who don't know exactly where this is, for context, if you've been looking at those cyclone tracking maps, which I know millions of people have been watching them closely, you see where Tropical Cyclone Alfred is currently tracking to cross. There's those two big islands. One of those is North Stradbroke, the other one is Moreton Island. And then to the west of that, that you can't exactly see on that tracking map, is what's known as the Bay Islands. Now, that's a cluster of smaller islands, a population of around 10,000 people. The median age of that population is 61 years old, so you've got a lot of older residents there, a lot of retirees, a lot of pensioners, and a lot of people, as the Premier said, without power tonight. So that's not a good way to go into a cyclone, knowing that you're probably not going to get that restored in any way, shape or form until after the event, or after the event has become safe to do so. But also on those islands, we're hearing some really nice stories, some good community citizen stories, particularly the case on Lamb Island, where we know a group of volunteers, mostly Rural Fire Service volunteers, have banded together. They've gone door to door, knocking on the doors of elderly residents to see if they're okay. And what they did find is that in many of these properties, a lot of people have made improvised shelters within their home, and it's there, Sarah, that they're going to ride out the night.
So everybody's pretty well hunkered down. There's not too many people out in the street. I've noticed it with the elderly folk. Some are crying, some are pretty upset. We're trying to help those guys out. A fair few trees down. One just missed a house. Everybody's got their own little spot that they're going to go to. There's even one person, they've got a cupboard on the ground there, and then they've made a little room inside down there so that they can close it all up. It's the safest place of the house. We've got a fairly strong house we built a few years ago, and it's got a stairway system that's very robust. It's right in the centre of the whole place. So if the roof were to lift or anything were to happen with it, we could go down in the stairwell there. Everybody's just ready, waiting it out, just to see how it goes.
For the most up-to-date information in your area, tune into your local ABC radio station on a battery-operated radio or visit abc.net.au/emergency.